Hey, fourth grade, welcome to Tuesday. I have the weirdest story for you, first of all. So I was texting Miss Olson this morning, and I'm like telling her about plans and things, and I was like, what are you doing for tomorrow? And Miss Olson's reply is like, it's Tuesday. So I am totally out of sorts today. I don't know about you, but I don't even know what day of the week it is anymore. But it is Tuesday, March 31st. It is our last day of March. Let's go over our assignments first. So, book club reading is due for today, your next section. There's also a discussion question that is due within your Google Classroom. You have started your next writing assignment for your unique talent. So yesterday you brainstormed to use that fill in the blank sheet. Today you should be making a handwritten sloppy copy of what your paragraph will actually consist of, look like, beginning, middle, end. Math is practice 14.3. Social studies, you're continuing reading about the land and water sections in your social studies packet. And just so you know specifically what I am talking about, your social studies packet, when you printed it off from your computer, hopefully you printed it, has a cover sheet that looks like this. And then a few pages in, the reading starts with all these different articles. So when I say you should be reading from your regions packet for land and water, you are looking for the actual section in your packet that says land and water. Your reflection notes from reading this are in the back of your packet. So if I turn, my land and water notes go into the landforms of the Southwest region area, along with a picture, and the water of the Southwest. Little paragraph, little picture. And it'll go kind of in that pattern for the next couple days. About a week and a half we'll be working on this project in this packet. Second step you have this week, it is another video with a reflection question in your Google Classroom. And as always, you should be checking your PowerSchool page for information from our specials teachers. So that is the information that I have for you today. Let's talk about Maniac. So we're on chapter 11, and Maniac almost literally ran into this other guy. He ran into Mars Bar, and Mars Bar is another kind of bully character, and that doesn't worry Maniac at all. Maniac just does Maniac kind of things, and from there, we end with Maniac taking a bite of Mars Bar's candy bar, and he just walks away. So that's where we're starting today. So we are on chapter 11. Now what? Maniac uncrumpled the paper, flattened it out as best he could. How could he return the book to Amanda in this condition? He couldn't. But he had to. It was hers. Judging from that morning, she was pretty finicky about her books. What would make her madder? Not getting the book back at all? or to get it back with a page ripped out. Maniac cringed at both prospects. He wandered around the East End, jogging slowly. In no hurry now, he found 728 Sycamore Street. He was passing a vacant lot when he heard an all too familiar voice. "Hey, Fishbelly!" He stopped, turned. This time Mars Bar wasn't alone. A handful of other kids trailed down the sidewalk. Maniac waited. Coming up to him, Mars Bar said, "Where you running, boy?" "Nowhere." "You running from us? You afraid?" "No, I just like running." "You want to run?" Mars Bar grinned. "Go ahead. We'll give you a head start." Maniac grinned back. No thanks." Mars Bar held out his hand. "Give me my book." Maniac shook his head. Mars Bar glared. "Give me it." Maniac shook his head. Mars Bar reached for it. Maniac pulled it away. They moved in on him now. They packed and backed him up. Some high schoolers were playing basketball up the street, but they weren't noticing. And there wasn't a broom-swinging lady in sight. Maniac felt a hard flatness against his back. Suddenly his world was very small and very simple. A brick wall behind him, a row of scowling faces in front of him. He clutched the book with both hands. The faces were closing in. A voice called, "That you, Jeffrey?" The faces parted. At the curb was a girl on a bike. Amanda! She hoisted the bike to the sidewalk and walked it over. She looked at the book, at the torn page. "Who ripped my book?" Mars Bar pointed at Maniac. "He did." Amanda knew better. "You ripped my book." Mars Bar's eyes went big as headlights. "I did not." "You did. You lie." "I didn't." "You did." She let the bike fall to Maniac. She grabbed the book and started kicking Maniac in his beloved sneakers. "I got a little brother and a little sister that crayon all over my books, and I got a dog that eats them. And that's just inside my own family. And I'm not gonna have nobody else messing with my books. You understand?" By then, Mars Bar was hauling on up the street, past the basketball players who were rolling on the asphalt with laughter. Amanda took the torn page from Maniac. To her, it was a broken wing of a bird, a pet out in the rain. She turned misty-eyed to Maniac. "It's one of my favorite books." Maniac smiled. "We can fix it." The way he said it, she believed. "Want to come to my house?" she said. "Sure," he said. Jerry Spinelli and his language in this book is absolutely awesome. He really paints that picture in your head with his language, with how much Amanda loves her books. She loves books just like a bird with a broken wing, a pet out in the rain. It makes her that sad. Chapter 12. When they walked in, Amanda's mother was busy with her usual tools, a yellow plastic bucket and a sponge. She was scrubbing purple crayon off the TV screen. "Mom," said Amanda, "this is Jeffrey. She whispered, "What's your last name?" He whispered, "McGee." She said, "McGee." Mrs. Beale held up a hand and said, "Hold it," and went on scrubbing. When she finally finished, she straightened up, turned, and said, "Now what?" "Mom, this is Jeffrey McGee, you know." Amanda was hardly finished when Maniac zipped across the room and stuck out his hand. "Nice to meet ya, Mrs. Beale. Mrs. Beale." They shook hands. Mrs. Beale smiled. "So you're the book boy." She started nodding. "Amanda came home one day. 'Mom, there's a boy I loaned one of my books out to.' 'Loaned a book? You?' 'Mom, he practically made me. He really likes books. I met him on—' 'Mom!' Amanda screeched. "I never said all that." I bet you some of you sound like that sometimes. Mrs. Beale nodded solemnly. "No, of course you didn't," and gave Maniac a huge wink, which made Amanda screech louder until something crashed in the kitchen. Mrs. Beale ran. Amanda and Maniac ran. The scene in the kitchen stopped them cold. One little girl, eyes wide, standing on a countertop. One little boy, eyes wide, standing just below her on a chair. A shattered glass jar, and some stringy, pale-colored gloop on the floor. One growing cloud of sauerkraut fumes. Ugh. If you like sauerkraut, awesome, but I think it smells nasty too. The girl was Hector, age 4. The boy was Lester, age 3. In less than 5 minutes, while Mrs. Beale and Amanda cleaned up the floor, Hester and Lester and their dog Bow Wow were in the backyard wrestling and tickling and jumping and just generally going wild with their new buddy and victim, Maniac McGee. Maniac was still there when Mr. Beale came home from his Saturday shift at the tire factory. He was there for dinner. When Hester and Lester pushed their chairs alongside him, he was there to help Amanda mend her torn book. He was there watching TV afterward, with Lester rioting one knee, Lester the other. He was there when Hester and Lester came screaming down the stairs with a book. Amanda screamed even louder. After them, the kids shoving the book and themselves into Maniac's lap. Amanda finally calming down because they didn't want the crayon book. They wanted Maniac to read. And so he read Little, Little Crocodile to Hester and Lester, and even though they pretended not to listen, to Amanda and Mr. and Mrs. Beale. And he was there when Hester and Lester were herded upstairs to bed, and Mrs. Beale said, "Don't you think it's about time you heading home, Jeffrey? Your parents will be wondering." So, Maniac wanted to say something, but not knowing how, got into the car with Mr. Beale to drive him home. And then he made a mistake. He waited for only 2 or 3 blocks to go by before saying to Mr. Beale, "This is it." Mr. Beale stopped, but he didn't let Maniac out of the car. He looked at him funny. Mr. Beale knew that his passenger apparently didn't. East End was East End, and West End was West End, and the house this white boy was pointing to was filled with black people, just like every other house on top Hector Street. Mr. Beale pointed out to Maniac. Maniac's lips started to quiver, and right there, with the car idling in the middle of the street, Maniac told him that he didn't really have a home, unless you counted the deer shed at the zoo. Alrighty, fourth grade, I hope you had a great day, and we'll read again tomorrow. Have a great night.